everybody to I think it's my fifth one yet, but it's been some time since I last did my mental health podcast, mainly because I've been taking a break due to some personal stuff. I've been very busy doing other things and bringing a lot of other fun content that I didn't have enough time to actually do a podcast, but I'm excited to bring it back. I am excited to bring it back for the year 2022 because it's something that I'm always going to be passionate about. And as I always say, the more we talk about it, the more it gets easier for all of us. And just a little disclaimer before I begin, I'm not saying any means am I a professional or I am like super knowledgeable of anything to do with mental health on hand. This is just based on what I know. This is just based on my own knowledge and my personal experience. So don't take whatever I say to 100%. If anything, I will always encourage, if you need professional help, please don't be afraid to seek professional help. And hopefully this podcast is just for myself, for you, and not only you, but you people around us as well. Hopefully that we can help one another. And yeah, so welcome everybody. I hope you guys enjoy. And the reason why I also have this visual aid is also because so you guys won't just keep seeing my face. It's going to be super boring if you're just going to see my face and I'll be talking, yapping away. So I decided to have something else that you guys can look at. All right. Okay, so without further ado, let me just introduce to y'all what the topic of today is. Today, it's a little bit on self-discovery and the importance of taking care of your mental health. So we'll be talking about the importance of taking care of our mental health, improving mental health through self-discovery, some of the benefits of self-discovery, as well as how to practice self-discovery. Okay. So most importantly, why is it important to take care of your mental health? I feel like we all know that it's important, right? We all know that it is very, very important to keep our mental health state at check, but we don't know exactly why is it so important. And I know in our lives, we all have these moments where it's really stressful. We go through life is obviously always filled with ups and downs. Like no one's life is ever perfect. No one's life is ever like a straight line. We all have those days where it might be bad, it might be good. So we go through stressful events in our life all the time. And this is when it's especially important to be mindful of your mental health during these events, just because we don't want to spiral into negative emotions. You know, like how sometimes you go through something like something stressful, something that makes you upset, and then we just overthink and overthink and overthink. And from one little problem, it becomes like another added problem, another added problem, and it becomes just this like big ball of negativity around you. And sometimes when you overthink, you start to spiral. I don't know about you guys, but I tend to do that a lot. I am like a creature of an overthinker, and sometimes I just spiral into this negativity, and then it just goes into like a rabbit hole of emotions, and it's really not good, right? First of all, I don't look good crying. So that is why we need to be mindful of our mental health, and this is so that we can have an overall positive outlook towards our life throughout, right? And also it also determines how we handle stressful situations. Of course, we are going to go through like tough moments in our life, but we not necessarily know how exactly to handle it, right? We don't know how to cope with it, we don't know how to deal with it. So being able to take care of your mental health will then eventually result in an overall less stressful experience. And isn't that like wonderful? Like even if we go through so many things in life, if we are better able to cope with it, it feels less stressful, and obviously that will feel really great, right? Because we can't change what exactly happens around us, right? We can't change when things happen around us. If something bad happen, it's not necessarily our doing, right? There's nothing that we can actually do about it. But what we can do is taking responsibility and making sure that we take action to make things better for ourselves. And that goes back to promoting productivity and effectiveness in our lives, right? So I know as much as we love to lie down on our bed and just cry all day and like mope all day in our emotions. Yeah, like it's good to not do anything, but I suppose the longer that we do that, the longer that we just, coop ourselves at home and just be in our bed, it doesn't really feel productive at the end of the day, right? You tend to lose this purpose of your life. It gets to a point where you start to lose yourself. You start to question, like, what am I doing in your life, right? So being aware and cautious of others and our own mental health state eventually ensures we become stronger individuals. So leading back to taking care of mental health, one of it is through self-discovery. So self-discovery is a very, very broad topic. It has a lot of things to do with self-discovery, and many people might see the word self-discovery in different perspective as well. But more importantly, what is self-discovery is just basically discovering yourself. Simply put, it's just about you, and you, right? So self-discovery helps to develop self-awareness. So basically you are being aware of who you are as a person, what I am, and in turn it leads to self-acceptance. Okay, which is really not easy. Self-acceptance is really not easy. But that's why self-discovery is the root of self-love, because once you fully accept who you are, you kind of care less about other people's approval, right? Because you already accept yourself for who you are. You know who you are as a person. Whatever people say about you or whatever people think of you, you will be unfazed by it, right? And I know it's really, really easy to be like affected what people say, and some of us might even look into what people think of us, what people say of us as a term of validation, and that's normal. But once you truly discover yourself, you will get to a point where, you know what, even if somebody says like, Charles, you suck, Charles is a loser, but if I truly accepted myself, I wouldn't give two shits about what other people feel. And that in itself is truly, truly a wonderful, powerful feeling. The moment when you get to a point where, you know what, I don't really care about what people think, what people say about me, I know who I am, that is, the feeling is just wonderful. Let me just tell you that, right? So self-discovery is just being your own best friend. I mean, as much as we can have like many friends who are there for us, or our family who are there for us, at the end of the day, you need to be your own friend as well. Because even if you have people helping you, that wouldn't help as much as you helping your own self. Like, it always starts with you. So self-discovery is being your own best friend. Okay, it's also about knowing your true potential and owning your power, which I just talked about. Like, having that powerful feeling when you realize you care about yourself and you know yourself, and that is just your true potential. Getting a better understanding of who you are can help you understand where you're going. Because have you ever lost my train of thought? Have you guys ever been, I'm sure you guys have been in like a position where you guys were asking yourself, like, what am I doing in my life? You wake up every day, you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing here? If you're like in a job that you really, really hate, and you're just like, what is my life? What am I doing here, right? So self-discovery gives you a better understanding of who you are and what you want to do in your life, that can help you understand where you want to go. For example, in like 5 years or 10 years, or even like tomorrow, or even next week or the next day, you will know and understand better where you want to go. And that can in itself actually help you to set more meaningful goals. And I want to emphasize the word meaningful goals here, because sometimes we can set goals, like normal goals, like for example, me, I want to lose weight, which is fine, it's a goal, but we need to set more meaningful goals as well, even if it's a good goal or a bad goal. For example, like eliminating bad habits or doing something good. That is what we mean by meaningful goals. And once we set these meaningful goals for ourselves, our life will start to feel like we have a purpose. Oopsie, sorry. Oopsie, sorry. Why am I so scuffed today? Our life will feel like we have a purpose. We don't longer wake up and be like, what am I doing here? Because we know where we want to do, we know where we want to go, right? So, all in all, self discovery is just about you, and you. Oh, yeah. And I want to talk about this as well because I feel like this is also part of like self discovery. Because I often hear this all the time where people be like, you know what? She made me feel upset. He made me feel this way. My mom made me angry. My mom made me react this way. Right? And I would like to like emphasize a little bit here like no one ever makes you do something. It's always about you. It's always at the end of the day you have the choice. And I always say this like in like almost every mental health podcast. I always say the same thing like we can never change our situation. Maybe we can't change people around us. We may not be able to have the ability to change people around us, what happens to us, what happens around us, but we always have a choice on how we react to it. So in the process of self-discovery, most of it has to do with a lot of like questioning yourself. Like for example, you ask like, why am I getting upset? Why do I get upset all the time when this person does this and does that? So when you start to ask yourself these questions, you kind of understand better of who you are and how you react to certain things. And therefore, when you self-reflect, you can take action to be a better person, right? But questioning and having all these answers can be a little bit daunting because you are going to have to face answers that not necessarily be positive about yourself. Sometimes it might be reflecting on your bad habits, and of course it's going to be very difficult sometimes for us to actually talk about our bad sides, but it is necessary as well. Okay, so moving on again, like what self-discovery is, it also helps you to kind of stop comparing ourselves to others, as we soon understand that we are all unique. And I would like to say like jealousy is very common. You know, with jealousy comes a lot of comparison with one another. Like, hey, why is this person doing better than me? Why is this person getting more attention than me? Am I doing something wrong? Am I not good enough? And all those sort of stuff. And when you don't really fully love yourself and accept yourself for who you are, that comparison can really eat you up alive, right? But when you discover yourself to a full extent, you would learn to stop comparing yourself because you understand that, hey, like I'm unique the way I am and I am who I am because I'm just like that, right? It doesn't mean that someone does better than me, doesn't make me less good of a person, doesn't make me a bad person. It's just that all of us are just humans and we all have our unique traits, and it's okay to be different. Yeah. And that also means we are just more comfortable with ourselves. And being comfortable with ourselves also means to remove negative people around us, right? Because once we are just comfortable with ourselves and being able to be alone and be okay with ourselves, we start to realize that some people in our life or in our group may not necessarily be positive energy or the energy that we need in our lives. So we sort of like cut them. So a lot of self-discovery is also about being comfortable with your inner self as well. But not only that, but it also helps you to speak up and stand up for yourself. Hold on, let me just drink a little bit. So speaking up and standing for yourself and setting boundaries, what you can tolerate and what you don't tolerate. So in the process of self-discovery, right? Once you fully understand who you are, you will be able to set better boundaries for yourself. You will understand what kind of values and beliefs you have and what you can tolerate and what you don't, which in turn leads to the ability to speak up and stand up for yourself. And I think, like, even for me, I struggle a lot when I couldn't speak up and stand up for myself, because a lot of it is to do with how I'm not comfortable with myself. So back then when I was younger, I couldn't stand up for myself. I couldn't speak up for myself. So I just didn't set boundaries. I just let everybody just, kind of like tear me down or just step over my head because I couldn't speak up. I just couldn't do it. Yeah. So ultimately, self-discovery, it's about understanding you, your pitfalls, what kind of action that needs to be taken, and in turn, stronger, focused, and resilient. Safe. All right. So how do we practice self-discovery? Okay, so a lot of self-discovery actually has to do with questioning. And this is, I mean, you can find a lot of like tools and resources online when you like search like how to practice self-discovery, right? Like we all know what self-discovery is by now. It's just basically discovering yourself in different means, right? But how do we actually practice it? It's a very, very long process. So there are many ways you can do it. So take what you can from what I'll be saying here, whatever that's relatable to you or whatever that applies. But I just want to emphasize here that it's not something that can be done straight away. It's not like I'm showing you like tips and then it can be done immediately. It's something that is going to be a long process. It's not something that can be done overnight for sure. Self-discovery takes a lot of courage, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort as well. But I just want to emphasize that if you do take a road to self-discovery, I'm just going to tell you the feeling is going to be so wonderful and it's going to be so powerful and it's going to be super worth it. So yeah, just to put it out there. But most of self-discovery process actually starts off with questions. So if you're in the process of personal self-discovery, you can ask yourself questions like, what is something that makes me happy? What brings me joy? What matters to me the most right now? What am I grateful for? Am I content with my life? What inspires me? And what is something I would like to do more of? If you're trying to discover and figure out relationships, be it with your friends, your family, or your partner, and if you want to find out like what do I most value and who do I most value, who are my trusted being, whom do I go to when I need advice? Do I listen to my family more than I listen to myself? Because sometimes we do that. As much as it's good to get advice from people and your close ones, sometimes you don't need to listen to yourself too. Which family member do I admire the most? And who am I thankful for in my family? So I believe these questions can help you guide, like, there are obviously more questions that you can ask yourself, and not only these questions that you can ask, but these are just like some examples you can start with, some of the guidance that you can slowly start with. So these questions can actually guide you in a sense that you can understand like, what do you like about your life? What do you want more from your life? What are you grateful for, and who are my closest trusted beings around me? And this can help you in turn navigate your life where you know like what you're sort of looking for or like lacking for in your life, that in turns lets you work towards it. Like for example, sometimes we don't know what we're lacking in our life, right? Because we're just so busy like going day to day, like, okay, I'm gonna go to work, gonna come home, and then just like sleep, like me, gaming, streaming, and then that's it, right? So sometimes when we don't do this kind of like self-reflection and self-questioning, we don't know exactly like what's really missing in our life, right? But if we just sit down and just like ask ourselves this, just sit down and be like, bitch, I'm gonna talk to you right now. And just like ask ourselves these questions, then we start to realize certain things that we not necessarily know beforehand, if that makes any sense, right? So these are some questions that you can take with, and then other things is there are different ways, but another one that you can actually try is visualizing your ideal self, which is, it sounds very common, like in job interviews they always ask you this question like, where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? You know, and it's always this like hated question that I like, because I never know like what to say. I never know. I've never like sat down and be like, okay, I know where I want to be in like 5 years. I don't even know what I'm eating tomorrow. I don't even know what I ate today. How do I know what I'm gonna do in 5 to 10 years? Like, goddamn, right? Visualizing your ideal self can actually help you understand where you are in life now and where do you want to be and what kind of actions you need to take to be your ideal self, right? It doesn't have to be like 5 to 10 years. It can be just be like, oh, where do I see myself in a week? Or where do I see myself in a month? Maybe if you can't really visualize yourself in 5 to 10 years, you can take it slow. You can take it bit by bit and just be like, okay, maybe a month, and then next one I'll be like maybe a year, maybe 5 years, and then 10, right? So it is very good to kind of, I know we hate this question, but visualizing your ideal self can actually be quite beneficial actually. Yeah. And another thing that is most hated, especially for me, is this word called try new things. As daunting as trying new things is, especially if you struggle with a lot of anxiety, it's very, very difficult to try new things. Speaking from experience here, matcha, yes. But you won't know until you try, right? And the moment when you try new things, I'm sure you will feel very, very proud of yourself. I'm sure there were times where you didn't try something and you did, and you feel so achieved. And that actually boosts a lot of self-esteem, right? Because you start to feel like, oh my god, why didn't I try this earlier? Why didn't I feel so good about myself now? So trying new things can actually discover some of the parts of yourself that you didn't know until now. So get yourself out of your comfort zone, try new things, and who knows, you might find something that you actually feel passionate about, right? Wine, identifying your value about yourself is very, very important, because it can tell you a lot about yourself, and that in turn can help you navigate the life you want to live. For example, if you never knew like what kind of values you have, you don't know how you want to treat others, you don't know how you want to be treated. So for example, if you value honesty, if you value courage, if you value compassion, you will tend to seek people who give you the same kind of energy. That makes sense, right? Okay, yes. So another thing which not a lot of people do, because I think this is the hardest thing to do. You hear it a lot, but it's very difficult to do, which is, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but keeping a journal. But then let me just explain to you why it's actually really, really good to keep a journal. Okay. And why self-reflection, one of the important parts of self-reflection is actually keeping a journal. Okay, let me just paint you a picture. Okay, like for example, if you're just sitting down, you're just like processing your thoughts, you're just thinking, we might forget about it in a month, we might forget about it like in a year, right? We kind of remember what we ate yesterday. What makes you think we can remember our self-reflections without writing it down, right? So keeping a journal, which you can like do it over a course of like months or maybe a year if you're really into that, it helps you get back in touch with yourself, right? And also it helps you actually really see, because you actually read it and you actually see about your progress. Because from not writing it down, actually reading it, we don't know how much we have progressed, right? Like, yeah, we do have memories and we can look back and we can reflect on, but it's not really concrete, and sometimes we might forget little details as well. So having a journal where you like write down about how you feel, what do you do, what you have achieved, actually helps you keep track of your patterns as well, like what is working, what is not, what have you tried, what have you not tried. So in a sense that it's easier for you to kind of see where you have gone in the past few weeks or months or years, as compared to just self-reflect. I mean, it's okay to self-reflect like by yourself by just expressing your thoughts, but another way is also to be encouraged to start writing a journal. And it is probably the hardest thing because it takes a lot of determination. It takes a lot of dedication as well. But trust me, keeping a journal is very beneficial. It's also very therapeutic, and even if it's like just like a few sentence or a few words, it's fine. Just take like probably like 10 minutes of your life just to write it down. And if you're not the kind of person that can write on like a piece of paper, I think like having like online journals is also fine as well. Like just typing might be easier for you, whatever that you feel comfortable with, right? But yeah, keeping a journal is one of like the the hardest but also the most beneficial steps into your practice of self-discovery and self-reflection. But another thing that I want to talk about is, previously I talked about trying new things, right? But if you're not really into that, you can also try to evaluate your skills. So basically honing your skills that you already have can really increase your self-esteem. It can really increase your confidence, because when you recognize your unique abilities, it makes you feel very, very self-achieved. It makes you feel really good about yourself on the inside. So not only trying new things, but elevating the skills that you already have helps you to discover and understand, like, hey, like I can actually do this. I'm actually good at this. And if you're not good at it, then try something new, right? Like for example, we might like art, but we don't know how good we can be until we keep practicing it. We keep trying and trying and trying, and then one day you'll be like, oh my god, I'm like Mr. Rockworks, I'm so good in my art now. And that makes you feel just confident, right? Yeah. And another thing that you can do is, which I think a lot of people actually do practice this when it comes to self-reflection or self-discovery, is to either travel, which we can't do now due to COVID, but meditate, mindfulness, nature break, or even a social media break. And I think it's very hard to do a social media break, but it is also very it feels very therapeutic once in a while to get off your phone, get off your internet, and just be with yourself, because having a change of scenery can actually be beneficial, you know. Sometimes social media can be toxic. Sometimes such social media can be super negative. So it's good to kind of take a step back once in a while and eliminate these distractions from your goals that you already have put place, because this can actually, you never know that this can actually be obstacles that are hindering you from achieving your goals. And I think like taking nature breaks once in a while, I mean, it's really up to whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever you feel helps you. You can try either or, whatever that works for you, and see if you feel good about yourself. And I think taking like nature breaks can also be very, very therapeutic. Like once in a while, it just feels good to be like, you know, you can go with yourself or go with your friends, it's up to you. But I think in this sense, I would encourage to do it by yourself, because it allows you to feel more comfortable in your own skin and more looking on the inwards as opposed to looking outwards, if that makes any sense. So yeah, taking a step back and just being in your own peace and quiet can actually help you be more peaceful. It can bring a lot of positive energy back into your mind. It can clear your mind, and yeah, that's part of your healing process. It's also part of your self-discovery process. But as I said in the start of the topic, it's going to be a long process, and everybody's process is different. Everybody's process might be like, the timing might be different, the process might be different. Some people might take like faster, but we're not supposed to compare, obviously. It's going to be a super long process, but just remember, it's going to be worth it at the end of the day. It might take you weeks, it might take you months, it might take you years, but that's part of what self-discovery is. It's not going to be like an overnight thing, but it's going to be very, very worth it. You just need to take the first step. So self-discovery actually really helps you develop self-confidence and feelings of self-worth, and you will be the happiest you. So I'd just like to leave the podcast before we move on to the discussion and sharing each other's experience and personal experience with one another. But I would just like to leave with two quotes here, which I find it's super inspiring and super relatable to the topic. But it's the most satisfying journey is a journey you can take inward with yourself, which is definitely about self-discovery. It's about looking on the inwards as opposed to outward, right? Discovering your own self. And another quote is, don't confuse your path with your destination. Just because it's stormy now doesn't mean you aren't headed for sunshine, which is so powerful. So with that, the podcast has ended. Thank you once again for coming for my mental health podcast. I appreciate it so much as always, and hopefully I can do this more, and hopefully we will all be in a process of self-discovery. Okay, thank you once again.